All right, so the last lecture for week 9 is on Git. Well, it's called Git Undo. It's essentially a bit of a fun lecture that I added in a few terms ago, um, where we went and we focused on what to do if you make like some mistakes in Git and how to resolve them carefully. Because everything we've kind of done in the course so far has been really... Yeah, let me get to that slide. So we'll talk about hard resetting, altering Git history, amending a commit. We'll just talk about a few practical things with Git. So everything we've done until this point is focused on continuing to build on the Git history. And what that means is that we've largely considered the Git history immutable, as in it doesn't change or it can't change. And with Git though, sometimes you will make mistakes or sometimes you will want to rewrite the Git history. Yeah. And this is important because like examples of this are maybe you actually need to completely remove code for everyone. Maybe you push some sensitive code. Maybe it's too hard to figure out what you have to go and change. And there's lots of scenarios where you might want to do this, but you generally need to be quite careful. And the two ways that we go and rewrite history are either Git resetting or by amending a Git commit. And the amending a Git commit part is pretty easy, but we're going to look at Git resetting first. So Atlassian, who run Bitbucket, they have an article about Git reset, where they go into a lot of detail with it and they explain stuff super thoroughly, much more thoroughly than we're going to today. But today we're just going to focus on hard and soft resets. They're both a really simple idea. I think Git hard resets are actually the easiest thing to do. A Git hard reset is a way of saying that you want to set all of your code back to a specific commit. And it's used when you say, I want to go back in time and I don't care about anything that's happened since that point in time. I just want to like unwind the clock as if everything that happened after that never happened. So if I go and say, have a look at let's say look at our like week 2 NPM. What have we got here? Let's say look at some things we did earlier this term. Yeah, okay, this is a good example. So let's say I go and clone this repo. Make this big again. Yep. I'm going to come up here, git clone, that. Now if I come inside here, you can see that if I git log, I've got 3 commits here. So what a git reset hard allows me to do is that if I just simply type in git reset -- hard and then I give it a commit hash, it can be the short one or the full one. What it will do if once I run that is you'll see it will actually have reset my history as if that was the last commit, and it will have removed these files here as well. So you'll see that if I look at the commit history on this repo, you'll see that we added the weather APIs in the last commit here, right? We added open weather APIs, but you'll see that now that I've reset it, if I open up the package.json, those weather APIs aren't there. It's not always necessarily for going back in time. If you have the commit of something newer, you can actually go further forward in time too. Like I can git reset hard, kind of like a future commit. Like that one, and now we're kind of going back there. Because remember, the way to think about Git and commits is that if you make 3 commits on a repo, yeah, 3 commits in a repo like this, remember all a branch is a branch is just a pointer to a commit. That's it. And each commit has a parent. That's all Git is. So when you reset something hard, when you're on the master branch and you reset the master branch hard to another commit, Git kind of this still exists in Git, you just can't really see it. You know, like it's kind of gone as far as master's concerned, because master just says, yeah, I'm this commit, and this commit just has one other thing. So similarly, if you then like kind of point it to this one, it just looks like a single commit. So if we say git log here and we look at say this last commit, 360f7a198, now when I git log it, it's as if that's the only commit that exists. So it's just a way of kind of like snapping back to a particular commit. It's pretty handy. The only problem with it is that you kind of now can't push like this, because if you remember back to week 1, we talked about how Git always wants like new history. So you kind of have to do a force push is the problem. We'll do a force push in the reset soft example. But yeah, that's it. That's resetting hard with Git. That's what that is. I want to go back in time, or forward in time. I want to go to a specific commit, and I don't care about anything that's happened after that specific commit. It's typically used to go back in time, sometimes to jump around. A git reset soft is a bit more subtle. This one I've never really had a lot of use for in the real world. I mainly use it a lot with like 1531. But what a git reset soft does is it keeps all of your current code the same, but it just changes what commit you're pointing to. Which is kind of, might be a little confusing. Okay, look at the text here. This is used for saying, I like the code that I have. I don't want to change the code that I have, but I want to alter the history. So where the hard reset was different was the hard reset was like, I want to go back to this point in time. I want to go to that commit and the code for that commit, like, just literally like go to there specifically. Whereas a git reset soft is like, don't change the code I have, but I want to pretend that I'm pointing here. So it's kind of like if we come back here, if you're say pointing here, when you do a git reset soft to say this one, the first commit, you kind of have all the code from all the commits still, but Git thinks you are at this commit. And what that immediately does is Git immediately thinks that all this code that's happened since the first commit kind of needs to be committed. So you'll see here that if I say go right back to the first commit, sorry, if I say reset this repo, let's go back to how this was when I cloned it. Right? So I've got 3 commits. I've got all the code. You can see it in my package.json because I've got both dependencies here that we added. Well, if I do say git reset soft to 360, to the first commit. Oops, what did I do wrong? F7A1. Yeah, let's do that. You'll see that when I git log, there's only one commit there now, but you'll see that if I open up my files, everything's still there. And if I git status and I git diff, you'll see that, well, not git diff, but you'll see that all the stuff that's happened is all kind of ready to be committed. So again, it's like keeping all the files, but not, my brain melted, I'm sorry. Keeping all the files, but going back to a specific commit. Now, why is this useful? It's really useful when you have lots of commits and you want to kind of collapse them down. So let's say, for example, we have a different repo. What's another repo we worked on together in week 1? I think it was Carbonara. Remember this one? So just bring back some dark memories for you all. Let's say we go and clone this repo for a second. Right, git clone Carbonara. And then I go inside Carbonara. Well, we got this big git log here, but let's say we go all the way back to the first commit. And then we do a git reset soft to the first commit. Now I've got all these file changes, right? But I've only got one commit. So now when I do a commit and I say like finishing up Carbonara, my git log now only has 2 commits. Whereas this one here, on the git repo, I had a whole bunch. So it's kind of like a way of cleaning the git history. And you'll see here that now when I try and push, I still get an error, right? I get an error because, again, I'm trying to rewrite history. But you can overwrite that with a push force. Generally, if you do a push force, it won't work. But if you're a maintainer on a repo, which many of you aren't for 1531, you can actually go and remove what they call branch protection for a particular branch. Most Git tools have this, which is like a way of protecting Git from yourself. Basically, this is saying I can't force push. Well, if I tick this, I can force push now. So now when I force push, it'll work. You can't do this on your repos. But you'll see I've like rewritten the commit history, but all the files are still the same. Ingredients, we have all of that stuff there. And all of this leads us to our last point here, which is a git commit amend. So you know how to git commit, right? You git commit -m and then the commit message. But if you add a -amend to the commit, what it will actually do is it won't go and add a new commit. It kind of overrides the last commit that's there. And you'll see this a bit, for instance. Let's say, again, I'm on the Carbonara repo, and I do a soft reset back to the first commit, right? So now we are at that first commit. all the files that happened since then are still like there. I haven't deleted them. It's not a hard reset. But what I want to do is I only want to leave one commit here. What I can do is I can do the commit I did before. But if I add a -- amend to it, what you'll notice if I git log is that it's different. Now, a couple of things you'll notice. The hash is different. That makes sense because it's a totally different commit. The name is different because I overwrote it. But by default, it doesn't actually update the timestamps and stuff. This is actually why, if you pay attention to... some of you might have noticed this. On some of your labs, most of the labs we push you, we have made updates. So... yeah. See if one of them has it. Maybe not. Tam usually seems to update stuff. Yeah. Tam's updated stuff. But when we push them out to you, you would have seen this kind of thing where it says ready for 22T3, and then it says 2 months ago. Now that makes a lot of sense because that was this term, but maybe a better example is that if you look at the project, if you actually pay attention to the very first commit in the project, do we rewrite that too? There you go. I think it's because we made a whole new repo for it, probably. Okay, well, maybe if I show you like 22T1s, maybe it's different there. Nope. Never mind. The point is that sometimes it keeps the old history. You'll see this for your final exam, actually. So when you see the final exam, you'll see that it looks like the commit was made back in like July or something, if it's the same exam. But it's actually just because we amended the commit and the date stayed the same. So in summary here, generally a hard reset is pretty useful. I would say it's most useful when you are working locally and have yet to push anything to Git, because things get a lot harder once GitLab is familiar with your history, because then you have to start force pushing, which like ruins other people's stuff. Don't do it. Or at least talk to everyone first. But a Git soft reset in conjunction with a Git amend is a pretty useful way of cleaning up history. It's not a useful way to change the code as much as it's useful to kind of polish off the commits a little bit. Which again, I've never really had a use for because I've only worked in organizations of like, 20, 30, 40 people mostly. But it's certainly useful for like 1531 when you're, giving it out to 700 students who've never used Git before, and you don't want to give them like 10 commits with weird messages they had nothing to do with, because they'll just be like, this is weird. So anyway, any questions about that? Because that's pretty much the end of this one. It's meant to be a short lecture. It's only 15 minutes. Not accessible in any way, but it's a little bit of useful fun. Cool. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for this. That's it for the week 9 lectures. Next lecture will be on the exam. Yeah.